much for joining us. We've had a substantial number of people who have actually registered for today's call, which I guess demonstrates the interest in the subject matter, and also, I guess, to some extent, points towards actually how difficult things are in the UK at the moment. For those that don't know me, my name is Stephen Knight. Huge welcome to you all. I'm the CEO and founder of Pimento. And for those that don't know Pimento, we're a network of 188 independent agencies and consultants who employ in turn around about 6,000 specialists that offer.
It's the Pimento one.
Sorry, if you give me that offer around 97 different marketing disciplines to brands, agencies, and businesses alike. Today's session will be recorded, so please turn on your cameras, smile throughout. Remember to use the chat box at the bottom of the screen, the green box. As always, we want to make the session as interactive as possible, so please do feel free to ask questions. If you've got a burning question and no one's coming to you, then raise your hand. And we will, of course, open it to further questions at the end of the conversation. So hopefully all of you will get a chance to participate. Now, the reality is it's a tough old world out there at the moment. As the UK market becomes even more difficult, I think agencies increasingly are looking to grow their businesses overseas. There's a variety of different ways one can go about that, from working with international versions of Pimento, to which we have two on today's call, to partnering with local agencies or working with the Advertising Association and others. We've gathered, I think, the four leading speakers in the category to be part of our panel today. Aisling Collin is the International Trade Director responsible for UK Advertising Exports Group, which is a bit of a mouthful. She also goes by the Advertising Association, so she sits within a august and important area of the Advertising Association, helping to grow and sell internationally British creativity and agencies around the world. She leads these initiatives to support UK companies in their global growth, offering a platform to showcase creativity, innovation, and in industry expertise. She works very closely also with the Department of Business and Trade and contributes to the development of the UK house brand, organising strategic trade missions around the globe to unlock new potential opportunities in pivotal markets, including the USA, Europe, MENA, and China. And she'll tell us all about her activities, and she's also going to share some data with us, which will be helpful to give you some insights as to where the opportunities lie. Paul Squirrell is, by his own admission, a serial networker and a founder and managing director of Mission Hubs, a unique international ecosystem of independent agencies of all disciplines that work together and with the Mission Group in a symbiotic fashion. Before Mission Hubs, Paul spent 17 years building and managing the Network One, and early in the noughties, he was the founder partner at Creative Brief, the UK's first online marketplace for agencies and clients. Paul also has worked as a new business director, sharp end, and account director with Omnicom and several independent agencies. As I said, we've got the right people in the room. Ian Wright has spent his career working in advertising. Do you remember advertising? I do. Most recently, he was the managing director of Tribe Global, a network of independent agencies based out of Amsterdam. He's also a partner in the creative consultancy called Family, based in Edinburgh. His style is to combine creativity and entrepreneurialism with sound commercial thinking and common sense. And his area of expertise lies in international business, having worked with agencies and clients in more than 50 markets. Today, he works as an advisor with a range of companies, mainly in the independent sector, helping them with their marketing and communications, as well as brands. Will Walsh ran a digital agency for 7 years, expanded it into the US, Canada, Hong Kong, and Australia in record time before co-founding and running creative agency and Pimento member Wonderhatch. And Wonderhatch has now been going for 7 years. While Wonderhatch is yet to set up abroad, has recently won work in Saudi Arabia and is beginning to look there and to the USA. He spent time working with the UK AEG and looks forward to sharing some of his insights and ideas and learnings about how you internationalize and sell overseas today. So I'm going to start with Aisling, who's going to basically put a few slides up and kind of set the scene, if you like, as to what's going on out there. And then we'll bring the rest of the group in and take it from there.
Thank you, Stephen. I hope everyone can hear me. So last week, the Advertising Association, at which my desk sits at, we launched a report called the AdPlays Report, which is research into the economic effect that the entire advertising sector has on the British economy. And we are doing a deep dive into the export chapter, which was about 3 pages long in that report over the coming weeks. But what I thought it would be good to sort of set the scene or some context around this conversation this morning is to give you an insight into the top line data that we've got at the moment. So in 2024, we know that the UK advertising industry exported £17.9 billion around the world. You'll see in the copy below, I talk about that includes production, creative agencies, etc. So within ONS data, it's capped as advertising and marketing services. To put this into context for you, where that figure sits amongst the creative industry within the UK, we know, for example, that music exported around 4 billion in 2024. So we are sort of hats and tails above everybody else. We have seen a steady trajectory of growth, which I refer to as the 2012 London Olympic effect. But there is a point where that growth will eventually stall. But for now, we are in a very good place as an industry. If I could go to the next slide, please. Apologies, I was having issues sharing, so someone is kindly going to do this for me. Part of my role as the International Trade Director is to bang the drum, if you like, in the corridors of government on behalf of the UK advertising industry with an international global focus. So I will refer to us as the export powerhouse. That is of huge importance to the British economy, now more than ever, especially when we know our current government is... But yeah, so I will often refer to UK advertising as the export powerhouse. And then we all know with the current government, the importance of the word growth to them. And that is a lot of what we have been doing since the general election, is in talking about the importance of the UK advertising sector, how we want to grow it from the second largest exporter in the world to number 1. And you can imagine our biggest competition is the USA. So I often treat these like my own Olympics. And we want to be on the number 1 podium spot. With that export or advertising industry as an export powerhouse, what we will always remind government and their civil servants is that we export more than engineering, legal services, and we're 5 times more than AV, film, TV, and music. We also commissioned a report a few years ago with PwC, which looked at what are the factors that sort of contribute to the growth, or what is the international CMO looking for or thinking about the UK advertising industry that makes us a success story. There were 3 key factors that came out of that research. They are the creativity, talent, and our reputation. That reputation lies within strategic thinking and creative effectiveness that we can deliver, that is deemed to be unique to the UK advertising industry. The other item, which is sort of like a slightly more obvious one, is our geographical zone, because we're able to service the world due to the time differences. I've noted already at the start, we are the second biggest exporter. I do have ambitions within my job role to be the number 1. That's easier said than done, as you can imagine. But what the research shows for the 2024 figures is that we are actually starting to close the gap between the US, which holds the number 1 slot. When we produce the full report, which will be in the first week of June, we will dive more into that, because that is a bigger question for us. But I thought that was just a useful stat for everyone to be aware of as part of this conversation. The graph that I provided looks a bit grainy on my screen, but hopefully it's clearer for you all. But again, that shows that story where I'm saying just about the value that we have in comparison to other sectors, which are quite often deemed to be massive exporters and probably slightly bigger than the advertising sector within government. So this is a big statement that we come out with every year. And it's great for us when the data shows that that has not changed. It allows us to have a strong narrative within the current corridors of government. And if I could go to the next slide, if that's okay. What I also thought would be really useful for this conversation, because I have no doubt that we're going to talk about different markets that we're all in, and we mentioned that Wonder Hatch had won new business in the Middle East. This is the current lay of the land. So what does that 7.9 billion figure look like? Where are the biggest markets that we're exporting to? So the US, or North America as it's appearing on this map, that is our number 1 biggest market that the UK advertising sector is exporting to. What we always find interesting every year, because this is the sixth year that we're doing this research project, is Europe still remains a big market, and that perhaps that Brexit effect hasn't taken full hold for us all. There has been a change within those numbers, but what we've noticed is where the numbers have dipped from Europe, that has gone to the US. So it has slightly weighted itself out. One of the areas that I'm looking at with a lot of interest, and we'll probably talk about that later in the conversation, is around the Middle East. So we can see that there is a trajectory going up on the rise, and that is largely around Saudi Arabia. And that is a big market from my desk that we are focusing in over the next 12 months to unlock growth opportunities, because it is an emerging market. And we are also looking at Africa. So markets like Nigeria, where they are due to become a sort of innovation hub, we're already starting work within those markets to see what we can unlock. That is the snapshot of where we've got. It's short but sweet. But I will say that we will be launching the full report at South by Southwest London on June 3rd at UK House. You will not need a pass to come into that. We'll be on stage giving more details, but I'll make sure through Stephen and the team that you're all aware of it. And if you want sort of a deeper dive into that information, that's where we'll be able to give it and probably answer some questions that people might have on that sort of deeper dive into the information. That's
Brilliant.
it.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, that kind of gives you a healthy look into the background and both the opportunity and the size of the pie, as it were. Just a quick question on that data. How is it? Is it literally on turnover, revenue, or how do they actually collect that data?
That is an ONS question. So
Okay, fair
we
enough.
use ONS data, and probably one that I should know the answer to if I'm absolutely honest, but my head is so in Cannes Lions today that that is one that I'd probably like to confirm via an email if I'm completely honest.
Excellent. So it's good to be on the beach, as they say. So let's get into this and then get started. Lots of questions and lots of things. I kind of it's a big old subject for a 45-minute conversation, but nonetheless we have to start somewhere. So can I kind of ask the first question, if I may? And this question is directed at all of you, and it's really just to do with why is it so important for UK agencies, particularly at this moment in time, to be thinking about actually selling themselves overseas? Anyone can have that one. Who wants to get us going?
Well, I'll start. There's an obvious answer, which is exposure. And the exposure to a single economy is always risky. And there are huge opportunities for growth around the world. And UK creativity is fortunate. It still holds a very high position in the views of many markets and many clients around the world. But by I guess, going into other markets, there is a mitigation of risk, especially as an agency gets bigger, which, given the sort of turmoils we have seen recently, is an important thing.
I completely concur. Yeah, I mean, anyone else got a counterpoint of view on that or something to add?
I guess to add just to attract bigger clients, you need the geographical footprint. So if you're looking to do that, it might be key.
Okay, and Will, for you, what was the starting point? I mean, as you say, you don't have a foot in the ground, you don't have offices in the markets you're trying to sell to at the moment. So how do you build that awareness? How do you build that credibility overseas?
Yeah, I think it is about just getting involved, isn't it? It's literally getting, going out there, working out where you want to go, going out there, looking around and doing your research, and then actually as quickly as possible just getting some work by hook or by crook, because you'll learn more doing that than anything else. If you've got the money and the time and the luxury, you can spend months and years doing the research, doing the planning, but there's nothing like being on the ground and just that's where you're going to see the culture face to face. But look, of course, well, we're coming on to hurdles later, but it is a big investment, and so to do it virtually as is amazingly possible these days, that's a good start.
Yeah. I guess because it allows you kind of to test the market before you make a full investment in actually, picking up sticks and going over there, as it were. Ian, I mean, you've been involved in internationalizing agencies or working with international agencies over the years, and you'll have some insights as to how the rest of the world views British creativity. Do you think that's changed in recent years? Do you think we've kind of dented our brand as along with the other things that we've managed to do as a nation?
I think the UK is still seen as a leader in advertising and marketing. It's not as strong as it was, and I remember going out to Asia to meet agencies in Asia to encourage them to join Tribe Global. Their view was if this conversation was 10, 15 years ago, absolutely. But actually, to be honest, it's us that's leading you now. You should be coming to Asia. We don't necessarily need to go to Europe. So I think that's a change. But I still think that people have a high regard for agencies, for advertising, and just the creative industries in the UK. I think that still is strong, and I think it's stronger than probably any other European market.
Okay, but actually, you've made a really good point there, which we should kind of add to this conversation, which is actually you learn, by actually putting yourself in that environment. And if you're saying the Asian agencies in particular are actually beginning to lead in certain spaces, technology being an obvious one, then actually it's a learning opportunity as well as a new business opportunity. And something that's actually should be viewed as both. Actually, do you see that from the agencies that are part of your community? I mean, you've got a mix of the global icons, the big PLCs, the large organizations, as well as the independents. What is their motive for basically being part of the organization? What are they looking to achieve?
Oh, I think Will would be better to answer that than me because he's a member.
Well, look, I think the really interesting point that Ian's making about Asia is Saudi's the new Asia then, isn't it? Because Saudi is still seeing Britain, UK creativity as premium prime, and they almost want you just for the fact that you're British. So I think that's really interesting that Asia moved on.
I might just jump in, Will, because just on that, when we go to Saudi and China, two really good markets where we actually position ourselves as a luxury brand. So our marketing and how we show up is very different to how we might show up to the US. We are very much viewed as you made it, you're a successful company, you are now working with the UK. It is a thing that people like to bring to the table as sort of a show of achievement. And that's what we've noticed works for us. So when we're running events at China or Saudi, they have to be very high profile. It's a VIP experience so that we're replicating that luxury branding positioning that we've been given by both those markets.
Whereas the US, sorry, you go over there and you go, the Americans love the English. Of course they do, but they don't love the English in work. They don't love the English setting up shop in their backyard, and that's a whole different scenario. I think. I mean, the US is very, very hard.
That's one of the advantages of being Scottish, Will. The people tend to like us around the world.
You just need the red hair as well, and then you're sorted in.
I had to say that. I think it's interesting, though, because I kind of feel the UK is not in a great place. I do think there's a bit of kind of managed decline. If you go to Asia, the pace is incredible. They're moving forward every single day. If you go to Saudi, and I've got agencies out there who are doing a lot of work in Saudi, it's just incredible. Anything is possible. Anything is achievable. And that market is changing so dramatically. I think people will think Saudi's a great place to go, and for some people it is. But to actually understand the Saudi market and get into it, that's a whole other discussion.
Oh, completely. And that's where partnership really benefits, because dipping into that market blind is absolutely terrifying. Yeah. And, as Asia was a few years ago, perhaps. And, I think one of the important things is to, go and visit these markets, treat it as a learning opportunity, but go there with the utmost of respect. And there's a lot that can be learned from every market around the world. We might see ourselves as leaders, but please don't take that attitude. You go and learn and see where the land lies, who's doing what, and how you can benefit each other. Then you end up with a much more symbiotic approach to building that network and establishing yourself in those markets.
Okay, so being more humble, not trading on being British, finding original ways to actually go and learn as well as obviously contribute seem to be the bywords. What can we say positively then about the UK creative industries when we are going to some of these markets? What are the things that we can impart and discuss and use as levers to demonstrate not superiority, but actually that we do have something to actually give to the party?
I'm happy to go first, because what we often find, because we host events all around the world, and we will often go to markets and say, what is it you would like to hear from us on stage? What is it, what do you want the UK to bring to this event? And what seems to come up on a regular basis is insights on your strategic thinking and your creative effectiveness. The fact that we can go down to ROI figures, no other market can. So what we find is it sets us apart, as in that skill set that we have and that insider knowledge, that does set us apart when it comes to pitch conversations and conversations that said brand is having at boardroom tables, especially at the moment. So we know there is a lot of pressure on the brand side. But we will quite often hang our hat around our strategic thinking. Innovation is creeping in, but strategic thinking and our creative effectiveness are big talking points that we find land really well.
And in land of automation and increasing push from AI, insight, creativity, data, ROI, these are all things that, whilst they can be aided by things like AI, ultimately experience and so on and so forth. So that sounds like a good plan. Like it sounds a good plan domestically, let alone internationally. And these are the core skills that one is going to have in agency life as we move forward. If we want to get involved, so I'm an agency, I'm got a turnover, a couple of million, 3 million, whatever. I've seen a tough market the last 2 years. I'm static at best. I'm desperately keen to basically begin to export what I do around the world. Where do I start? Who do I speak to? Do I come and have a chat with you, Aisling, or do I come and have a chat with you, Paul? What would you suggest? Both of you, perhaps.
Aisling, after you.
I'll say both of us.
Oh, very, very good, very good.
Well, I mean, people can come and talk to me. We're always interested. In fact, I would say interested, probably not the word. It's really important for me, whether you're a member or not, to know what the challenges are that you are facing and the opportunities, because I cannot tell government where the challenges are unless the industry makes us aware of them. So, for example, we know there are a lot of challenges unfolding within the US. So you can imagine that my job is very, very busy over the last 2 weeks, going back in and forth, explaining why a knock-on effect to the car industry is ultimately going to have a long-term knock-on effect to the advertising sector. Because trust me, they have not thought that down to that viewpoint. What they see is the job losses that are being put across the news every evening. So, one, whether you're a member or not, we need to be aware of the challenges that everyone's facing, whether that's entry into market, because I know someone's asked a question about, challenges around Saudi, and that's something that I can maybe talk about a bit later. But also we need to know what markets are working for you and what markets aren't. We can't, we can make an assumption based on that data, but that's what's always so good when we have members like Wonderhatch and others who come and let us know when they've won international new business, so that we can go and also champion that new business story within the corridors of government. But essentially, everyone spoke about, we've all kind of alluded, is probably a better way of putting it, to the importance of being on the ground. I cannot stress that enough. When someone asks me what's the one piece of advice I would give, it is, when you go to look at your budgets for the next 12 months, at whatever time this year, allocate as best as you can your sort of investment into your international growth. You do not have to be on the stage speaking. It's like, go to that event first, come with us on our trade missions that we run, which are curated for the industry, and sort of get a feel for that market, for that event. Markets like Saudi, again, kind of going back to that one because we know it's such an important area for our industry, do not underestimate the power of being in person. Once a year is not enough. They expect you to be back and forth in the market, meeting with them. You must show commitment to the kingdom in order to sort of unlock that new business narrative. So for us, we will be doing a lot of stuff around with the Saudi industry at Cannes Lions next month, sort of unlocking and starting that positioning so it isn't always about us traveling over. We know we can meet them elsewhere. But yeah, we do loads of trade missions all around the world where we are just trying to curate that boots on the ground objective that we're all talking about. But yeah, it is so important to show up in person, which is easier said than done because even myself, I've become accustomed to a life online. But you will make your job much harder and it will make the process much slower if you're sort of not traveling over to meet with people.
Actually, before we go on to Paul, just explain and unpack that a little bit more for me, because if people don't know about the association, don't know actually what a trade mission is, can you just explain what's involved, what the
Yes.
commitments like to be, and the nature of the events and activities you run when you're in market?
Yeah, and I should apologize. Trade mission is government language. After 5 years, I've been brainwashed. We don't use that language in our industry. So a good example is Cannes Lions and South by Southwest Austin, because one's just behind me and one's, as I say, taking over my life at the moment. So we will run curated time slots around a major event, and we refer to that within government language as a trade mission. So what we will always try and do is provide a moment where you can, I like to say, meet a new friend, because we don't go in on a heavy sale. So we'll provide a moment where everyone can meet a new friend. So we do that through a series of things that can be a round table. It can be on a main stage slot where we've sort of made people up with brands that we know that we think fits the bill with them, and then they discuss items. Round tables are always our most popular. And as I say, my job is to provide an opportunity for everyone to make a new friend, and then you do the rest, because I cannot be new business director for 100 odd companies. We do not have the time. To sort of take part in the activities that we're doing, what have we got left this year? So we've got Cannes Lions that's coming up in June. We're also going to Shanghai for the International Advertising Festival. I'm also doing Advertising Week New York. I've got another one in Saudi in October, and I will be back in South by Southwest Austin March. That is a massive event for us that really does work really well for us. To get involved, you have to pay into the pot, but we are fully aware of everyone's budgets and the costs to go to these events. So we do try and keep it at a sort of a reasonable rate, I'll say. Will can probably agree or disagree with that. But I would probably just say to anybody on this call, if you do want to find out more, it's kind of like, it's such a long conversation that it's probably best to just reach out to me directly. And if anyone on this call is heading out to Cannes Lions and you're not a member of UKAG or coming out with us, also would love to know what everyone's plans are around the event.
Just to say that Pimento is in the process of becoming a member, and we'll need to work out exactly what opportunities are there. Paul, you also are a member of Pimento now, Mission Hubs, which is fantastic. We get access to your 60 odd agencies around the world and growing by the minute. Tell me a little bit about how, again, agencies can actually benefit from both your experience and also your organization.
Thanks. Yeah, a good friend of mine, Mr. Simon Rintoul, I'm sure some of you know, has a wonderful expression, which is a cup of coffee is never wasted, virtual or otherwise. And I sort of live my life a little bit by that, because I know the door is always open for a chat, member of Mission Hubs or otherwise, because I find that often you learn a lot just by talking to somebody, and that's a two-way thing. So essentially, I mean, what do we provide? A lot of the agencies that we work with, our partners, have joined because they've taken that first step. They're looking for advice on how to get into other markets, which we can provide, but equally they want to connect with people locally on the ground. And our network, our ecosystem is totally transparent in the way that it works. So when you join, you get your list of members, and you're free to deal with whomsoever you like. And we sort of provide an overarching coverage, if you like, in terms of driving content and all the rest of it, as any group would do. But essentially, if you are looking to get into another market, seek as much advice as possible, and that's where we can certainly help. And indeed, to Ashlyn's point, go out and see people. We did a lot of this before COVID, and then I think we got very used to this sort of online environment, which is fantastic because you can save a fortune and you can shortcut and save a lot of time during the day. But actually going out there and visiting, if I'm traveling generally, I will take an extra day, and I will just go and see people that I know in market or are recommended to me. And a lot of our members do exactly the same thing. I'm visiting Europe with the family. I've got a 2-week vacation. Is there anyone in Paris that I should pop in and see, who I can have a cup of coffee with? That type of stuff is invaluable. It collects information, and that's the sort of off-book stuff that a lot of the Mission Hubs membership provides, along with sort of the soft support as well as the hard support. So it really is about taking it up. It doesn't have to be super expensive. I mean, I've been going to Cannes for, gosh, almost 20 years. And yes, you can go and buy the full ticket. You can go to the yachts in the harbour and all the rest of it. But actually, there's a lot of stuff you can learn. And Cannes Lions people will hate me for this, but just by being there, you'll meet a lot of people, do your research beforehand. You'll learn a lot by going to the event, obviously, but there's a lot of organizations that are putting stuff on that you can get involved with and talk to and arrange meetings. It's a mecca for people coming in from around the world, so that will not be a problem. And I think there are a lot of networks out there. Mission Hubs is we're slightly selective about the partners that we bring into it, because we're curated rather than a created network, and we are looking to drive value in particular places. But my door is always open, and to anybody on the call, I'm very happy to have a conversation, and see what we can learn together.
Steve, I was going to say that I think the one thing that's coming up in this conversation is about visiting. You cannot do this online. And I think it's essential. So, we're talking about, it's tough times in the UK. If you're going to expand into another market, you need to set aside time, you need to set aside some money, and you need to visit. And I think one of the things that certainly I saw from tribe agencies that did it well is that they connected with lots of people in a market. So it could be other agencies, it could be freelancers, it could be journalists, it could be subject experts. And that gave them a good feel for the market. I think partnering is absolutely the way to go, unless you're incredibly cash rich. But partnering, I think, is the way to go. And we always had a thing about, let's find the winners in the market, because sitting with the winners is a more interesting conversation. And I think that's something that's really important.
Yeah, that's particularly insightful, I think. Absolutely. And also, like, the idea is it doesn't have to be expensive. Pitch your tent on the beach in Cannes. I'm sure you'll get away with it. Tim, you had a couple of questions, sir. Can I bring you into the conversation, if I may? Let's just add you to the spotlight.
Sure. Yeah, just by way of quick introduction, I used to run my own branding design company, which I sold a few years ago, and now I help people running their own design companies to grow. Just for a bit of context, I'm hearing amongst my clients who are running their own agencies that the UK design industry, design agencies particularly, are cheaper. I was going to say better value, but actually let's call a spade, cheaper than particularly US companies. And we find ourselves in a position where US client companies are offshoring design work to the UK, which really is not where we want to be, and where we've been in the past. So, trading on being just British feels a little bit dangerous. I guess what I would say is that, we shouldn't put ourselves in a position where we are that sort of offshored, cheap alternative. But the way I sort of turn it around with my clients is be confident in your pricing when working with clients, particularly in the US. where our rates seem to compare quite favorably. So a lot of my clients are under a lot of pressure because they're struggling in the UK, and that inevitably leads to price erosion. But yeah, I encourage them when they're particularly dealing with clients in the US to be confident in their pricing. But yeah, I guess I'm interested to hear whether I appreciate that I'm in slightly off to the side a little bit in design, but whether you're finding something similar in advertising, that the UK is looking like good value.
Yeah, sorry, could I jump in there? Actually, I mean, the offshoring thing is really quite interesting. Part of the core of the Mission Hubs offer, for those of you that know the Mission Group, it's a holding company. But with it at the center, there is a whole group of people providing data and analytics service, behavioral science, media planning and buying. And part of our offer was to provide that to the US partners that we're working with at discounted rates. So we were, it's an offshored offer, and that landed very well. But to a certain extent, it's not just in design; it's also in digital as well, where we start to see that. I don't see it as a sort of degradation of quality. I mean, I look upon it as just being smart and moving around the world, essentially, where you can get best value as a client or as an agency. So yes, it is a thing at the moment for sure.
I guess what I'm saying is that the days of being British and therefore being seen as the best and being able to charge accordingly feel like they're over. That's not our position in the marketplace perhaps anymore. I think the quality is still there, but I'm not sure we can still command the price premium. Aisling, do you, as part of your it's great to see your chart earlier, your statistics. Do you benchmark pricing internationally?
It's not something that we do. You can imagine there's something like 20,000 agencies in the UK. I would be honest and say that would be near on impossible for me to do, but it's something we can talk to our Credos team, who are the research team, and see what we can look at. The other thing I was going to say, Tim, is have you spoke to Deborah Doughton?
Yes, I know her well.
Yeah, so I work really closely with her on CITIV in government, and I think me and her recently we were having a chat and we were sort of talking about this. So I think it's really important to feed from the design community, to feed a lot of that. Make sure you are feeding that into her, because she is your me, if you like.
Yeah.
And the other thing I will say in this conversation is you will remember that there's the GREAT campaign, which is run by the government. And one of the things that the creative industry is saying is, where has the GREAT campaign for the creative industries gone? Where is the premium high impact campaign for our creative sector? So I suspect you will see something, hopefully within the next 12 months, come out, which sort of, again, as I was saying earlier, goes back to that we are a luxury brand. We are not the cheap outsourcing sort of group. And
I guess I'm challenging that a little bit. I'm not sure that we may be seen as a luxury. I'm not sure we can charge luxury prices anymore, or that's our position in the market in design.
I think
the concept of affordable luxury is an interesting one, because I think just to your point, I think that the strength of the pound around the world, where we are particularly against the US at the moment, and have been as the US dollar picks up a little bit more after the outrages of the first quarter. I think we may well start to find that actually, you're right, we are a value proposition. In the same way as we view markets like Central Europe and in the past India and elsewhere as outsource opportunities when it comes to development, perhaps we should be viewed in the same way when it comes to creativity. Not necessarily where Aisling wants to position us.
No,
I appreciate you want more of a Jaguar type proposition on a global stage. Well, that's an interesting one from a brand point of view. But yeah, we want quality, but we also need to demonstrate that we're affordable. And I think that would be fantastic if that's part of that campaign. Is that being developed by a UK agency? I hope so.
The campaign,
yeah.
Yes, government will have a roster of UK companies that they must work with. The other thing I'll just add is, from our research that we will, and hopefully this will be ready for the June the 3rd one, if you think about in 2012 or prior to that there was less competition in terms of the top countries who were actually had the support of their governments and who were going global. It feels like the market has become increasingly competitive. especially as we came out of lockdown. So for my sector, one of the markets I really look at is Brazil. Brazil is a hothouse. It's hot on the heels of the UK and wants that second place slot that we currently have. So anything around South America, but Brazil mainly, is where I've got all my eyes on, watching what they are doing and what their offering is out to the world. So Gut is a really good kind of agency that we are watching a lot. They're opening offices all around the world. So it's definitely got more competitive for us out there.
Tim, I was going to say, I liked your statement about being confident and being confident in your work. I think you just need to be confident in our pricing. And I suppose it depends on which way you look at it, because if there is business coming from the US to the UK, that's kind of good. I guess it depends on how you kind of wrap that up. But the fact is, if there is business coming to the UK from the US, for most people, that's probably pretty good. I see it in Europe. We're working on a live project right now for a professional service firm in different markets, and two countries in Europe. One is 3 times the other for exactly the same job. So there is price differentials between countries. That will always be the case, I think. And the thing with this one is that the expensive country are thinking, maybe I need to go to this other country and actually get some of my work done because I'll make a considerably greater profit if I do it that way.
Sorry, that's exactly what I was saying, was be confident in your pricing.
Yep.
Sorry if that wasn't clear. I'm encouraging my clients to price higher
Yep,
with
absolutely.
US client companies. Sorry, my agency clients to price higher with US companies and to be confident.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's a great market for British design companies.
Yeah.
Back to your original question, if you the Wow company, who you probably know of, produced the benchmark that actually gives the pricing and hourly rates for agencies below $1 million and above $1 million. They've just published their benchmark exercise in the last week or so. Have a look at that. I'll give you some pricing information. It won't show how competitive we are otherwise with international marketplaces, but it will show within the UK market where the pricing is.
Oh yeah,
Abraham,
I'm very familiar. I was just interested to know on the international scale
where do we sit?
Where we sit.
Yeah, I don't think
I've never seen that. I'm very familiar with the WOW reports, which are great.
Useful. Abraham,
don't worry,
listen,
Tim, I've made you
congratulations.
know. I'll ask the
You made
research
note.
team.
I'm going to connect with you. I've got some other questions for you afterwards, Ashley, and I
gosh.
won't take up any more time.
Thank you, Tim. Sorry, small one there for you, Ashley. So, Abraham, congratulations. You won a piece of business in Qatar, and you're opening up conversations at the moment in Saudi and also China. Many congratulations. Was price an issue when you pitched? Was it something that actually came up in the conversation?
Price was an issue when it came to Qatar. You obviously want a preferential rate with it being a new brand going into the market. But we worked out a long-term deal in terms of retainer just to tie them in so that I can get that recurring model. In terms of China, they wasn't actually bothered. I actually increased the prices by about 30%. And they wanted to tap into the Western talent. So I own an agency in influencer marketing. So they obviously wanted to take the Western talent over to China to promote the new social platforms, but then vice versa, do brand campaigns to promote their products to obviously the US and across Europe as well. So yeah, I did manage to actually increase the prices, which was obviously good.
And in those instances, how did you go about winning the Qatar business? You don't have a presence there, and as you rightly say, you are where you are. How did you attract that client?
No, that was through a network. A friend used to work in the UAE in Dubai for 15 years as a consultant in the retail space, and it was generic content that was being posted across social media, and then the introductions that he had. So he had a gig, and it was basically a verbal introduction. So we promised with an ROI. They've never actually tapped into the influencer marketing space. They've only done SEO, blogs, and paid promotions. So they wanted to increase their revenue from 7 million to 20 million with certain KPIs based on the ROI and ROAS. So we managed to do that. We're still hitting the KPIs. We've gone from a 3-month trial campaign to now to a 12-month contract. However, the only issues that I've actually found is negotiating funds being paid up front, which has been very, very tough, which I've learned my lesson. So yeah, that would be the only thing that I would suggest people to really knuckle down and get sorted out ASAP. They like a bit of discount. But like I said, I try to negotiate on the long term. In terms of China, again, it was an old contact who'd been working for the likes of the Ogilvy agencies out there and moved over to the UK, been in London for about 15 years. So I've known her for about 5 years. There was a couple of girls that I originally met probably about 20 years ago, set themselves up. And again, they wanted access to talent that we've got access to globally. So we did a JV whereby any deals that they could broker, we would supply them with the talent, and vice versa from the Western market. We would, if we wanted brands to target their audiences over there, they would actually help us out. So we're working across the likes of Bilibao, Rednote, Kaishao platforms, and then obviously TikTok as well.
So that would seem to me that kind of, they're viewing that particular discipline as a category where they obviously need to get more experience, perhaps haven't got local operators that can do it as well. So, it's a good, strong niche proposition that you can internationalize and charge accordingly. What you did raise there is fascinating, and has been one of the major stumbling blocks for internationalizing agencies is payment terms, and also the kind of what you'll hear always, and I'm not being disparaging, is that if you do a job in Dubai, then always make sure you make your money on the first 2/3 of the job, because you may not get the final third, or that will be expected to be a discount. I don't know whether that's still true, Aisling, whether that's just an old sort of tale, or whether actually there is some truth in that.
I'm not sure, but one of the things I would, I'm sort of digressing from what you're asking me, Stephen, but it's burning in my headspace because a few people have mentioned things around the upfront financing. So there is a finance scheme within government. It is not relevant to our sector. And I just wanted to make everyone aware that there is an industrial strategy due out from the government this year, which is where they set out their kind of like how they're going to champion and help the industry. I won't bore you with how many meetings and long reams of paper I've got to write on behalf of the advertising sector. But most importantly, advertising has never featured in the industrial strategy. We are just sort of deemed to be over here working away. So we are expecting to be in the industrial strategy for the first time ever. And one of the things that I have been campaigning on is to see the reinvention of the government financing scheme to help those who are going into markets where you need upfront costing, but also to help put money towards pitching, in which we know you will need all bells and whistles to go for. So it would be worth, if you're not already, because I know my LinkedIn is pinging, but it would be worth most people on this call just making sure that you're following me on LinkedIn, because if any announcements around industrial strategy or anything like that, you will see them go up on my LinkedIn as we start to work through what of our asks from government have been successful. I will also say that if it is not successful, know that I will continue to bang that drum, demanding it on behalf of the industry, because I'm fully aware of what that cost situation looks like. And, it's not easy to negotiate in some of those markets as well.
Our experience, Stephen, is that we were successful in getting paid up front. It sounds like Abraham was as well with Qatar after some hard discussions. So I think there is some change from that. By the way, we found I should just a quick pitch for Aisling. We found our Saudi client at Cannes with UKEG round a round table. So there you go.
It's a great demonstration of it works. Kaz, I'm bringing you into the conversation, because you just talked about the UAE and working with Dubai Chamber there, and how you're able to leverage your relationship with the Department of Trade and Industry to facilitate an opportunity. So you've had a positive experience. How much of your business at the moment would you say is being derived from international markets, both brands as well as actually sort of reaching out and operating in those markets?
Well, we were quite fortunate, particularly with the incident with Dubai Chamber, because most of I think, if you're a business in Dubai, you have to be a member of the Chamber of Commerce. So, but their head of digital, who was actually a good contact of mine, reached out to us saying that we need some work, because a lot of the government agencies come to Dubai Chamber of Commerce to ask them about digital strategy for their own organization. So We got to work on the Sheikh's office. We got to work with Dubai University and a few others. So in terms of percentage at the moment, it's gone down. It's probably about 15%, but probably before the pandemic it was about 30%. But then off the back of that, we locally went through our Chamber of Commerce here in the West Midlands and got through to the international department and went on a few trade missions with them, which was really good. I think the Middle East, I mean, I've worked out there for quite some time, and the first thing that you'll notice is, I mean, when I arrived, I was only there for 5 days, but I had to stay there for 10 days because on the day of the meeting, they just decided not to turn up, and they rang me and said, "We can't make it. We'll let you know when we can." So I had to kind of put some extra days on top, and I had to wander around Dubai for a few days, and then they rang me on the day saying, "We're ready for you to come and see us." So that's one thing that you've got to be kind of mindful of, that it is quite laid back, and they might not turn up to meetings, particularly if it's the Sheikh's office. So that was kind of one of our experiences, but you do have to be on the ground. You definitely have to be on the ground there. But we're actively currently targeting agencies because we do a lot of agency to agency work in terms of tech development, and so therefore at the moment we're targeting the US, which we've done some work out there in the past, and they just seem to get on with things. You know, if they like you, they just seem to get on with things, which is actually the same with our German clients as well. So German clients are, you know, they just kind of get on with stuff and we get paid on time. But so yeah, so we're actively doing a campaign at the moment in the US, but and we're going the traditional route. We're actually calling agencies with some success actually.
But I think that just proves the point. You know, that they, you know, the best means of engagement are sometimes the oldest ways to approach things, which is about building relationships, being on the ground and doing what you do. I just want to bring in, if I may, Graham Blake, who's it's I think 11 o'clock or thereabouts in New Zealand, so he's joining us from New Zealand. So the flip side here, you're trying to sell obviously your services, your SaaS-based products to international markets like the UK. And all of your business, and you kind of a very different point of view, is about actually exporting what you do around the world. And therefore, you've had to adopt some of these techniques and some of the things we've been talking about on today's call.
That's absolutely right. Thanks, Stephen. Yes, it is close to 11 at night here in New Zealand. It's great to be on this call. Yeah. A few of your panelists have kind of laid down the idea that you've got to turn up, and I would say that's probably it doesn't matter whether you're dealing with Saudi or China or wherever. I've found that over the last 18 months of turning up to various tribe events and you know, Beamer events and all that sort of thing, that's where the rubber really hits the road. You know, you've got to create real relationships with people for them to trust you and to move forward. So yeah, just turning up is huge. And you're right, you need a budget, especially if you're coming all the way from New Zealand. You need a budget.
And you're off to Cannes, I believe, in a few weeks' time. So
yes, South by Southwest, and then Cannes.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, listen, I'm conscious of the time. It's been a really interesting and thought-provoking conversation this morning, and I really like to thank everybody who's participated. Obviously, particularly our panel have been fantastic. I think as Paul, Aisling, and also Ian and Will, for that matter, you know, their doors are open. If you want to connect with them, and they're happy to help you do that. We will be sharing with you the content from today's session, and very happy to connect you with anybody on today's call. Just to say that if you are already Pimento members, that we will be finding a way to connect meaningfully with all of these organizations and find ways to actually build bridges and reciprocate and get their agencies on the international scene involved in the activities that we're running in the UK. Couple of call outs, a few church notices. First of all, 6 p.m. Club is in Manchester. Again, for you agencies based in London, that's in the UK. Do take the opportunity to come up and join us on Thursday night. It's an informal networking event. You don't have to be a member. The food and drink is supplied. Teresa is just putting the link now in the chat. So join us. Our next BD Club is about building your marketing stack from CRM to marketing automation. That's on the 4th of June. And most importantly, new events. The Festival of New Business, which is an all-encompassing one-day festival on the 7th of October at One Birdcage Walk, London, is open, and you can now buy your tickets for that event. It's going to be a complete deep dive into new business and what you need to do to secure and build your new business pipeline and how you win it. And we've got a fantastic lineup of speakers to be announced over the next few weeks. So get involved, come and join us. It's about, I think, when times are tough, I think it was, who was it who said get on your bike? Is it getting your plane, I think, now, isn't it, really? We can help you with that too. So please do take the opportunities. Some of the ideas today were great. A lot of them were great and really helpful. So thanks to our panel. Have a fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks, Stephen.